The Rams have a new special teams coordinator. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about Bubba Ventrone. Also, will the Rams draft this homegrown superstar? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, drop a like, drop a comment. Podcast listeners, writers, review, reading on the show. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've covered LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, SI, Dodgers Nation, the LA Sports Report. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre, half, and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He just finished his 11th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, the Rams have hired their new special teams coordinator. We'll tell you everything you need to know about Bubba Ventrone. Like the name already. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. All right, just from the rip here, Travis, Bubba Ventrone is the new special teams coordinator. I think it stands out to me is just how quickly they filled this position, and it just has to tell you that the Rams really feel good about this guy.
Yeah, I think that it speaks to me, Doug, that this is obviously something that everybody knew was a problem, including everybody with the Rams, including Sean McVay and his coaching staff in the front office. And they knew they needed to move quickly. The last thing they needed was to find themselves in a situation similar to last year, next year, where the season starts and all of a sudden your special teams are a problem, and trying to fix that on the fly with coaching talent is very difficult. That once the season starts, it's hard to kind of get that thing squared away again. So that they moved as quickly as they did leads me to believe that there was a good pool of candidates, and that this is where they went is good. Because here's the thing. I think we've talked about it. We might even have talked about this yesterday. The everydayers will remember. I think one of the great untalked about skills that Sean McVay has is his ability to identify other coaching talent. He's very, very good at replacing people on his staff that get promoted and go elsewhere. Obviously, Chase Blackburn was not the right guy for that job for last season, so that he can go in and figure out what it is he wants to replace it with, who it is he wants to replace it with. I'm confident that it will be a lot better, and I like that they move quickly.
They did, and whether that was him being an excellent interviewer or if the Rams just desperate to hire and fill that spot, I think it could be a combination of both. But look, if you even know a little bit about the Rams in 2025 and 2026, you know that special teams was an issue from top to bottom. The kicking game, the punting, the blocking on kicks, the long snaps, the kick coverage, every single thing. You can pick a specific moment, whether it be Rashid Shaheed running a kickback in the Seahawks meltdown game in Week 16 where the Rams blew a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter. But the one that's going to stick out, the one that's going to live in infamy for Rams fans forever is Xavier Smith muffing 2 punts and one that led to a Seahawks touchdown that opened up an 11-point lead. And when you lose by 4 points and a muff punt leads to 7, you can really pinpoint how catastrophic that disaster was.
Yeah, it's very rare when you have a season or even a game, never mind a season, where you can say that right there, that's the thing that cost us a chance to win the game. And that happened not once or twice, but that happened a handful of times for the Rams this season, and it was almost always in the same grouping. It was almost always that special teams group. Like we talked about, had they done what they needed to do against, and again, we're not asking them to make 60-yard field goals or block a punt every game. Just be league average, be right in the middle of the pack, even be towards the bottom of the group. Just don't be terrible at them the way that they were. If they do what they're supposed to do against Philadelphia, if they do what they're supposed to do against San Francisco, if they do what they're supposed to do against Seattle in that Thursday night game, that NFC Championship game is at SoFi. And I get it. There's going to be fans of other teams there. That's just life in LA, but would have been a lot better than playing it up in Seattle. It would have been warmer. It would have been all of those things. And who knows? Maybe it's a 4-point difference. I don't know, but I don't know anybody that wouldn't rather be at home than on the road. And the Rams gave away home field advantage. They literally just gave it away because they couldn't get their special team squared away.
And I do like how the Rams are kind of sending a message that they are as aware as anyone how big of a deal this was that the special teams operation failed them this past season. But just getting to know a little bit about Bubba Ventrone, it's kind of funny because it's tough to really use special teams metrics to kind of evaluate how good a special teams coach is, because if you look at how the Browns were last year, they were 29th in the league in combined special teams, but he has, for the most part in his career, had some good seasons. 2018, 10th, 2019, 29th, 2024, 2021, 2nd. So, I mean, basically, his special team units have only ranked worse than 11 3 times in 8 years. So sometimes you see a lot of variance from this standpoint. It's tough to just say, every year they have the top 5 offense. It's not really like that in special teams.
No, it's not. And again, I'll do it in segment 1 here so we can get it done and we can check the box. I'm going to make a Dodger comparison here. When the Rams make a move, much like when the Dodgers make a move, they get the benefit of the doubt because they're right so often and wrong so infrequently that when they make a coaching change, when they make a personnel change, when they draft this guy or that guy as opposed to the other guy, I'm always going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Not that they don't make mistakes. Everybody does, but they seem to make fewer than the league average. The Dodgers, when they make moves, it more often than not works out. When the Rams have made moves, it more often than not works out. So we'll see what it is. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be great. It just can't stink. And last year it stunk. And I would be stunned if it's not just better, but noticeably better to where to the bottom of the pack to be the 18th best team in the league. If they were the 18th best team in the league of special teams, they're still playing. They got one more game to go in a couple of weekends.
And I get the sense, just kind of learning about him as a person, the Rams want someone that can maybe just be a little bit more of a in-your-face, hey, I'm not a nice guy. I'm not here to be your best friend. I'm here to make sure the job gets done type of guy. Because we kind of look at some of these things, and I got some facts on Bubba Ventrone, so we can just kind of get to know him about him as just not just a coach. Interesting stuff about him. And I know you're going to love this, Travis. So first and foremost, he played 10 years in the NFL, mostly on special teams. He played 97 games in his career, had 43 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 2 quarterback hits. Started with the Patriots in 2005, played 3 years in New England, then 4 years with the Browns, 2 with the 49ers, and he hasn't played since 2014. That's when his career ended. But at Villanova, he went to Nova. When you think of Villanova, I know you think of football, right? But when he went to Villanova, he got banned from tackling his teammates in practice because he would give his teammates concussions. So he wasn't allowed to tackle his teammates in practice. Like, that's something that will cross my mind when I see this. You're like, this guy seems like a tough dude.
Well, special teams coaches traditionally are a little, they're wired a little differently. They're a little more unhinged than maybe some of the other guys. And they need to be able to talk to the entire team because they're, other than the head coach, the special teams guy is the only buddy that talks to everybody. That's so often when a coach gets sacked, the special teams coordinator gets elevated. We saw it here in LA when Jeff Fisher got canned and they put Jim Fossil into that spot, and Bones Fossil went in and took over because they talk to the whole team and they've got personality because they have to talk to the whole team. They have to rally everyone together. You got to talk to D linemen, O linemen, defensive backs, wide receivers, running backs, corners. Everybody plays special teams except for quarterbacks. So you got to deal with everybody, and they have a unique communication style a lot of the time. And Like, I'm just excited to not see them botch special teams plays over and over again. So I'm here for it. Let's get it going.
Let's get it going. And last thing here, he got his nickname Bubba because of his big head as a kid. And his real name is Raymond, but he had a big head as a baby, and they nicknamed him Bubba. What am I missing something? Why does having a big head mean your nickname becomes Bubba?
I don't know, but I maybe there's just a regional thing that goes along with that. Okay. Because if it's as simple as you have a big head and you'd be called Bubba, I would have been called Bubba a long time ago because I got a lot of stuff going on here. I got a lot of head. I got a lot forehead. So I'm lucky that I'm not Bubba Rogers.
Yeah. No, you got
head size.
We got a big dome too, 7.5.
Big old butt.
But yeah,
I mean, it was a 7.5, 7 3/4, baby.
Oh, there you go. There you go, baby.
Yeah.
So now we got People's Champ, Sweet Tea, Bubba Rogers. Let's go. But coming up next, we've got our big take. We always do our big takeaways for every game. We got our big takeaways for the entire 2025-2026 season. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
Tax season does not have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it even easier than ever, I should say, to just hand things off and move on with your day. Because with TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. So instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person, or you can connect online. They're going to handle all of it, right? From W-2s to self-employed forms, and work to get you every deduction. And you can even upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and real peace of mind coming along knowing that an expert is handling. So for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Taxes, take it off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. And it is the last call for football. That's depressing on FanDuel, right? One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. We're talking, of course, about Super Bowl 60. And FanDuel is making sure that you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. So whether you're backing the favorite, last I looked, 4.5 for the Seahawks, riding the underdog, Pats, or building one last same game parlay, this is the game everybody's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from the kickoff to the final whistle. And if you're a new customer, bet just $5 and you're going to get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, season's over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a reminder to join the Everydayers Club. Go to lockedonrams.supercast.com and join today. You get ad-free audio, exclusive merch. You get a members-only Discord channel that I am in, and it's a lot of fun. So definitely go and join the Everyday Listeners Club. And you can take your Rams fandom to the next level. It supports the channel, supports the show. And the best thing about it, you can just talk Rams football 24/7, 365. So definitely go and do that. All right, Travis, here in our second segment, we got our 10 big takeaways for the season. And we really already hit on special teams. There's all these other ones that everyone else is talking about, right? So we're going to keep it fresh, switch it up a little bit, kind of go deeper in that, and just kind of look at the season. One thing that kind of hit me when I was thinking about it yesterday is really the Rams did not get that same level of rookie impact that we have seen for the last couple of seasons, because the reason why they really had this surprise, fast, accelerated rebuild was because they hit on the last couple of drafts before the previous one, with the class that had Puka Nacua and Kobe Turner, Byron Young, and then you had Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, list goes on and on. they had Terrence Ferguson as their top pick. He was dealing with a groin. It was a slow ramp up. And bottom line, the overall production, he ends with 11 catches this season, 231 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The Rams' most productive, impactful rookie was Josiah Stewart. He had 3 sacks, 22 tackles, but he wasn't a big impact player. We talked a lot about Jarquez Hunter. He was inactive for most of the season. Ty Hamilton did next to nothing. Chris Paul Jr., Pooh Paul, so we talked a lot about as a high upside guy. He was cut before the season started. And Konate Mumfield, he had 10 catches for 92 yards. He wasn't the guy they hoped they would be. So for the most part, the Rams draft wasn't as successful as the last couple ones we saw prior to the past years.
No, it wasn't. And I think that you're right. And I think it's fair to say so. But this is what I've said about every draft ever. I really think you need to give it at least 2 years and maybe a third year before you can really say this guy was the right pick. This guy was the wrong pick. You should have gone here. You should have gone there. Occasionally stuff just pops and it's obviously true right away where Puka Nacua explodes onto the scene or Jared Verse, looks like an all-pro in his rookie season. Like sometimes you can just tell right away. But I think Terrence Ferguson could be a really good player for the Rams. He was not particularly impactful this season. That doesn't mean that he won't be. I think that the athleticism that he brings to that position is something that's unique for the Rams. They've had a lot of guys that are kind of, just more of a smash, bludgeon kind of offensive lineman, whether it was Higbee, Parkinson, some other guys. Ferguson brings a little different element there. Josiah Stewart, I think, is going to be a really good player. We'll see. Byron Young's going to be in line to get paid before too long. Jared Verse obviously as well. So having some depth at that position, I think, is really good news. And I thought Mumfield did have some moments that there weren't a ton of them, but there was enough flashes there that makes you think, okay, let's see that again. And I swear I'm not doing a deal here. But he had more of an impact on this team than Tutu Atwell did. And we've seen the runway that they've given Atwell to try to figure out how to become a part of what they do. He has not been able to do it effectively. It feels like Mumfield has a chance to do that. So I agree with you. It wasn't a particularly impactful class, but from what I've seen from those 3 guys in particular, I think if we're talking 2 years from now, I think all 3 of those guys are really good NFL players.
It remains to be seen. I mean, it's possible. I think there's no real clear-cut path for them to have prominent roles. I think Terrence Ferguson, of course, is a guy we saw with Tutu Atwell. They drafted him high and they dragged him along for so many years, almost forcing it to try to prove themselves. And let's call it what it is. He was a somewhere between major disappointment to a bust with the Los Angeles Rams. But as far as Terrence Ferguson, I still think that they're going to increase his role next season. Mumfield's interesting. I think he's someone that I just look at the Rams when they're at their best with Sean McVay and 11 personnel. You have a true wide receiver 3. I mean, Van Jefferson, he was the guy it was Kupp and OBJ and Van Jefferson in that game. And Bryson Hopkins had a big game in that Super Bowl, right? They had to kind of turn to him. But Brandon Cook, Sammy Watkins, Robert Woods. I mean, when I say Konate Mumfield, I don't know if I include him in names I think are going to be like that, right?
Not yet. Not yet. I'm with you, but I guess that's what I'm getting at is that I think maybe we might feel differently a year from now. It might be, the rapport that builds between the quarterback and the receiver, the trust that builds between the receiver and the head coach and all of these things, because you saw there were a couple of times where he went at Mumfield and big moats were like, whoa, that Mumfield, not Devontae Adams, not Puka Nacua, not one of the tight ends, but rather Mumfield would be the target. And more often than not, it felt like he was ready for it. Like it could be Jordan Whittington. It could be Mumfield. Somebody, I'm with you, that somebody needs to step into that WR3 role that really hasn't been there. But I at least think he's an interesting option at this point where a guy like Atwell never really was.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that someone is Makai Lemon out of USC. I know it sounds wild, but hey, I want a lemon. I want a lemon, and I know I'm not going to get a Toyota of orange. I want it from USC, right? Hey, remember that jingle? Okay, it was kind of a classic.
You won't get a lemon.
Got a lemon.
Yeah, no, we're so Cal born and bred. Can you do the Cal Worthington song? Can you do that?
Not the top. I need keys on Van Nuys. I can do that one. Cal Worthington though, huh?
Yeah. Here's Cal Worthington and his dog Spot. If you want a brand new car, go see Cal.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Hey, look, anything's better than cars for kids, I'm going to say. But, yeah. Look, if you get Makai Lemon and you have Devontae Adams maybe take a little bit of a pay cut, that's kind of the blueprint of, okay, then we get back to the Sean McVay style of offense that I think is firing all cylinders, and you're not worried about a wide receiver 3. I mean, Tutu Atwell didn't even play. He didn't even play. He wasn't suited up for the NFC Championship game.
Yeah. No, they need to fix that, but I do think that that's down the list. The Rams are going to shop in the section of the store that they've been shopping in the section of the store for those sorts of guys. They're trying to catch lightning in a bottle in the back half of the draft, day 3 of the draft. That day 1 of that draft, day 2 of that draft, they better be going corners, offensive linemen. Like there are some things that, while a WR3 is a nice thing to have, that is not at the top of their shopping list, I don't think.
It's not. But I also think that we've seen the Rams, like Romo Dunze, and sometimes they just want the best player they think could just provide the most quality. And the way I look at it is, if you bring in a Makai Lemon, you get that true wide receiver 3, but has the potential to be a WR2, a massive playmaker, someone that when Devontae Adams is gone, which will be after next season, no matter what, he steps in there with him and Puka Nacua. It would be electric. I mean, I'm telling you, Makai Lemon, he looks and plays like a Ram. I can see it already. I can feel it already. So, and I just look at it too, is look, if you feel like you can get that cornerback later, or you can get him in free agency. I mean, it all depends. But I think that the Rams now, at the very least, we're pretty sold on the fact that they're not going to use that draft capital on a quarterback, at least the top 2 picks in the first round pick. So you're trying to get the best impact players that can kind of change the game for you. So I wouldn't be shocked if they go big on a receiver, or just another weapon for Matthew Stafford to just go all in for next season.
Yeah, to kind of bring it full circle, again, if that's what they decide to do, I wouldn't be, what are they doing? Because I trust them and I trust their evaluation process. I trust the players that they've picked because they've gotten a lot more right than they've gotten wrong. That being said, you have a hole in the side of your boat at corner. Let's patch that hole real quick before we, paint the whatever else is on a boat. That's all I know is the sides.
Yeah.
That you need to
I agree.
Put it away.
You can't buy a Porsche if you don't have a functioning toilet, right? Like at home, right? Like I'm with you on that. Like you got to address that. But I'm talking about, I'm looking at other ways too, other avenues, because they have, and the major point here is, and the thing to feel really good about, even though we're kind of living in these dark post NFC Championship loss days, is they got a lot of resources and they got a lot of things in their war chest. And coming up next, we're going to give you another big takeaway and give you more reason to feel good about the Rams. Come on, picking up the vibes, Ramley. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that actually is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs, because if you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites, because Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. So if I were going to hire somebody for this show, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just some resume buzzwords. So instead of struggling to get your job seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost your post to the people who are the best match for your role, and that makes a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. So spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give you and the job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Rams. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. By the way, Travis, I do want to point out that Toyota of Orange, Cal Worthington, they are not sponsors of this show. I'm going to send them this episode, and hopefully I've always wanted like a Toyota Tundra. Do they have I want a mid-90s Supra. I don't want the new one. I want the mid-90s one with the big spoiler. Like, they got to hook us up, right?
The old Supra, that's throwing it back. How about a Honda?
Circles on the back,
Yeah, I know exactly the car. You want white? You want red? What are you looking for?
I want blue. Rams blue.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No, but I don't know if blue cars. Every time I see the blue car with the Dodgers license plate, I'm like, just get a hat. Like, just get the hat. You know, like you're good.
It's a choice. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But picking up on our takes for the season, and we did the first one. That was just one as far as the rookie impact. You mentioned the offensive line. I think it's really interesting because you look at the offensive line, you could start to look at a core for the future. So the next takeaway is the offensive line, they could have their core of the future pretty much set at this point. You got Alec Jackson under contract, Steve Avila under contract, you have to pay him at some point, but Coleman Shelton, Kevin Dotson, and Warren McClendon Jr. It's one of the big bright spots for this season who took over for a injured Rob Havenstein. They're all signed through the 2026 season, some of them even longer, and that really puts together a pretty nice core. They allowed a league-low 23 sacks all year, and we didn't talk a lot about the offensive line, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, it is. And I think what they were able to do, which is just really crazy. We were just talking about, the Rams draft and where they've applied assets and, where they go. You don't find tackles in the NFL just kind of late in the draft or as undrafted free agents that you develop into starting tackles. And that's what the Rams have done with Jackson and McClendon. Rob Havenstein is the last of the St. Louis Rams. He's been in the league a long time. He's had an incredible NFL career. And he went down, and usually something like that happened. You're like, McClendon stepped right in there. I don't think we ever said his name again. There was never a when is Havenstein coming back. It was just like, okay, we got another good tackle in Warren McClendon. Jackson stepped in as protecting the MVP of the league's blind side, and we never really talked about him. And like you said, that's a good thing. I think they're in really good shape there. That being said, that stuff, we've seen it happen, D-Mac. It happens like that when it goes bad. That when it starts to struggle, it seems like it struggles across the board. So I would always be looking for depth there. I would always be looking to do what they've done and continue to develop guys along the way because, after quarterback, I think it's the second most important thing in the league is if your offensive line is good, you're always kind of in it. And if it's bad, you're always kind of not.
Exactly. I think that's where the hope is that it's a cultural thing, right? Ryan Wendell, the Rams offensive line coach, the scouting, developing department, is that, you're going to make a trade for Kevin Dotson. I mean, to have the foresight to make that move, that's a major feather in their caps. Steve Avila really has dealt with some injury issues at times, but he's been solid in just developing Warren McClendon the way they have. And Alec Jackson was a UDFA and at the second most valuable position, arguably, in the sport at left tackle. And he's an average to an above average offensive line. So really, I think that's something that out in the 2022 season, it was a point of emphasis. We have to, I think, almost culturally improve the offensive line unit. And they have definitely done that. Our last thing here, I want to get your thoughts on, Travis, is I don't know if you saw this, and we'll pick up. We got 8 more takeaways on Monday. We got all the offseason moves, guys. We got to kind of spread this out. We got 17 months of football before, 17 months before we play football again, right? So we got to spread this thing out. But did you see that DeMarcus Lawrence? He had a little issue with what Sean McVay said. So of course, Sean McVay after the game, he said about that final play where you had them drop into coverage there and they got the incomplete pass. McVay said they kind of lucked into having 2 guys peel on Kyron right there. I know that can't be part of their design, so it's a fortuitous buzz for them, but they're an excellent team. You don't take anything away. They earn the win, and they're NFC champs. And DeMarcus Lawrence, he said that, that he just made a play. And the back was too fast. If it was a regular design and the back wasn't hitting the bear. And he just basically kind of said that it was not a fortuitous bust, essentially.
Yeah, I don't know well enough to know who's right. I would think that in what we're talking about, I bet Sean McVay knows the Seattle coverages better than many of the Seattle defenders actually know their coverages. And he knows where people are supposed to be and, more importantly, where they're not supposed to be. So if he's saying that it was a fortuitous bust, I tend to agree with Sean McVay just because I know that he's got that crazy recall in his memory and everything else. But I also understand the impulse to be like, bro, we were in the right place at the right time. Why don't you, we still got one more game to play. Enjoy your off season. So I kind of see it both ways. But if McVay says it was a fortuitous bust, I'll trust him.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's pretty bold for Sean McVay to say. I mean, he was unwell, I think, after that one, just because of how frustrated he was. You really won't find him really say things like that. I mean, to call it a fortuitous bust like that, but he did say, so Lawrence said, fortuitous bust, yeah, man, I'll take it all day. But the way he explained it was that he didn't fear Matthew Stafford's mobility. And so he kind of felt like, hey, why don't I just drop into coverage? So that kind of does make a little bit of sense. So
it does.
I kind of believe really good players. And DeMarcus Lawrence is a really good player.
He is a really good player. And I think, what you said right there is going to be the thing we talk about a lot moving forward. And that is Matthew Stafford's inability to make something happen when everybody's covered. And I'm not saying you move on from him. I'm not saying that you do anything other than run it back with the MVP of the league. I'm don't get me wrong, but there are, like, when he ran for that one first down against Seattle, I think every Ram fan in the world's jaw hit the floor. Like, he actually shook somebody at one point and got that extra yard. It's just not something in that Rams web. And it's, if you're a defender and you don't have to worry about that. And again, it doesn't have to be Lamar Jackson. It doesn't have to be, something like that. It just needs to be something that can extend that play just make you think twice about it. I always think about Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes isn't a great runner, but the threat of him kind of doing, that thing that he does all along kind of makes you think twice about coming in or staying back. And Stafford just doesn't have that in his toolbox.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the only way that guys like Stafford exist in the NFL in the big 2026 is having a 10 out of 10 arm. And he still has a 10 out of 10 arm. But if it was like a 7 out of 10 arm with no mobility, he wouldn't be the quarterback, right? And Leslie has already said that they're looking that having a mobile quarterback is like a cheat code. And look, I would bet the house on it. Their next quarterback is going to have that ability to be able to keep them honest on the ground. Like you said, not necessarily Lamar Jackson, but a guy that can keep you honest and at least get a first down with his legs.
Think about every quarterback that's really come into the league of late. Like the last pure, like, I'm just going to stand back here and I'm not running no matter what. You know who it might have been is Goff. Like, Goff might have been the last guy that was, I'm going to sit back here. I'm going to look down the field. I got a good arm. I'm going to put the ball. I'm going to make good decisions, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody else that's kind of come in at least is not like we've talked about. Maybe it's not the second coming of a running quarterback, but there's the threat of, I can pick this up with my feet. I think Caleb Williams is a good example. Like, Caleb Williams doesn't run a ton, but he can. That he can extend a play, and they're just not a lot of Peyton Mannings, Matthew Staffords, Jared Goffs, those guys that just sit there and make it with their arm and their brain.
Trust me, I like my toxic trait now, Travis, is any quarterback that I want, I look up his age if I don't know it already, and then I always say, Stafford was traded to the Rams at 32. So I'm like, Josh Allen, 29, he'll be on the Rams when he's 32. Right? So Burrow, 28, 29, he'll be on the Rams when he's 32. Right? So Josh Allen, Rams, 32. A couple years, we'll take that. He might not have his mobility, but yeah.
Joe Burrow.
Hey, I'm here for Macaulay Culkin on the Rams, and that'd be great stuff too. But that's gonna do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA, and you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers at Travis Rogers. We'll be back with you later next week, breaking all things Rams football. Join the Everyday Listeners Club. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.